Please be seated. It's good to see you all here in this rain. Anybody come by bicycle by any chance? In the house where I grew up, there was a room that we called the music room. Besides the kitchen, it was the busiest room in the house. A day rarely went by that we did not hear my mother furiously running through her scales or gliding through a Chopin etude. And she had all 5 of us kids taking lessons: cello, flute, classical guitar, recorder. So there was always someone in the music room making at least some kind of attempt at music. The piano in the music room was a reliable old workhorse, a Chickering baby grand that my mother's parents purchased in the 1930s. In its prime, it was a rare prize of a piano with gnarled walnut veneer that glowed when it was new, a rich golden brown luster with shining gold accents and an intricate swirling grain that ran throughout its length and width. But by the time we kids were done with it, the old piano had lost its glory. The finish had become dull and worn. There were chips in the veneer. A few keys were missing their ivories. And then my mother's multiple sclerosis became more severe. Her once crashing chords became softer. Her scales came more slowly. And then the piano fell into silence. Well, my mom went from a cane to a walker to a wheelchair. The grand old instrument stood quietly in the corner of the room, only occasionally giving voice to a grandchild's rendition of Chopsticks. About 5 years after she stopped playing, my parents decided to have the piano restored to its original beauty. A piano restoration expert hauled it away to his workshop, where he worked on it for months. I was living in Boston at the time, and one night during that time, I had a dream that the restoration was complete. The piano had come back fully restored. I saw it by the picture window, gleaming in the golden light. And I called my mom that day, and I told her about the dream. And she startled me by saying that she also had the same dream. And then she said, "I keep thinking that when it comes back fully restored, I'll be restored too, and I'll be able to play it the way I used to." And together we savored that image, the hope for restoration, a healing brought on by a return to the golden years. And somewhere in our minds and in our hearts, it made perfect sense that multiple sclerosis could be cured by a piano restoration. Sometimes when we're looking for healing, in that deep place of longing, we find ourselves making deals, striking bargains. In our Hebrew Bible reading for today, we find a story about healing and making deals. We have this Aramaean general, a great warrior, a proud leader of armies who also happens to have leprosy. He hears through an Israeli servant that there is a prophet in Israel who could cure him. Elisha is his name. So Naaman, the general, sets off to the land of Israel with an army of men and their chariots and with everything he thinks he needs to purchase his healing. 10 talents of silver, 6,000 shekels of gold, 10 sets of garments, and a letter of recommendation from the king. And he parks his retinue outside the house of Elisha, and he sends his envoy with the announcement that he has arrived for his healing and is prepared to pay big bucks for it. But when Elisha the prophet hears that Naaman is coming, he doesn't even get out of his chair. Tell him to go wash in the Jordan River 7 times and he'll be healed, he says. What? Naaman is outraged. I came all this way with my army and my silver and my gold and my letter of recommendation, and all you do is send your humble servant out to tell me to go bathe in the river? Are you kidding me? I'm an important man. I need a big miracle. I'm ready to pay for it. Naaman had in his mind exactly the kind of deal that would be required to get his healing. He was a big man, and so healing would have to be a big occasion. The holy man would give him a personal audience. He would come out and wave his arms and say the magic words and call upon his distant God and do his thing. But instead, he's not even going to see me. But Elisha knew that healing is never something that you can buy. Elisha knew that whatever healing was in store for him would only come after he had put away his money and his power and his sense of control. God is not someone you can buy. Elisha knew that Naaman would only heal after he stopped being the general of a powerful army and stripped off his expensive clothes and stepped into the river as the only thing that he ever really was, a child of God. 7 times he bathed in that river, often enough for it to seem normal, almost enough to become a habit. No deals, no exchanges, no bargains. Just one requirement: be real. This is the only currency that God accepts. An authentic human being with a heart that has been broken open. Most of us know what that's about. And we come to church after having spent a little bit of time perhaps making ourselves more or less presentable, but we know we do that for one another, not for God. God does not see our clothes. God sees a child of God. And when I visit you in the hospital, you're wearing a thin hospital gown. Your hair is usually a mess. You have no impressive letters of recommendation on you, and you don't care, and I don't care, because we know the God of Israel is not impressed by the things of this world. God is looking for a child of God. And the day our God starts to be impressed by worldly rank and privilege is the day our God takes a step down from heaven and stops being God. And the day I start treating homeless people and poor people and poorly dressed people with any less honor than I treat the so-called more respectable members of our society is the day I stop being a priest of this God that we worship. This is why when we ordain someone to the priesthood, he or she promises to care alike for young and old, strong and weak, rich and poor. And this is why in our baptismal vows, we promise to seek and serve Christ in all persons, respecting the dignity of every human being. When I pray for you, I'm not thinking about the clothes you wear. I see you like the restored piano shimmering in golden light. I see your faces lifted up to the sun. I see your eyes brimming over with the Spirit of God. I see you sparkling. I see you healed. This week, I see Mary Rose Manhard, who departed this earth on the 31st of January, now completely bathed in a golden light. Turns out she was pretty sick for quite a while, but she chose not to mention it to anyone, including her doctor. In fact, I'm not sure she even mentioned it to herself, because I think on some deep level she wasn't sick at all and she knew it. She was healed. She was restored. I've said this before, but I think it's good to remind ourselves of this. There are people who appear to us to be perfectly healthy, with impressive jobs and young bodies and nice cars, who are deeply in need of healing. And there are people on their deathbeds, taking their final breaths, their bodies riddled with cancer, who are deeply healed. They have come to the River Jordan. They have removed their armor. They have stripped off their impressive clothes. They have given up their needs for control. There's nothing left between them and God but their open hearts. And that is where we are now. My mother had a chance to enjoy her restored piano. She had many friends who were professional musicians, and they came often to the music room and played for her. And years later, at the nursing home, late at night, when everyone was gone and nothing was left, she heard a different kind of music. It was coming from a place deep inside her, from a room that only God could enter. That music born in stillness. We know that place. We have heard that music. We can go there now. Give thanks for the grace of God, which brings healing power into our lives and restores us to our full humanity. Amen.